Well, I'm so excited to be sharing a special person with you today. She's special for a number of reasons. First and foremost, she's special because she's my grandma. But this is my grandma, and she's special for another reason. The other reason, and the reason that I want to talk with you today, Grandma, is to talk about the Japanese internment camps.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is fun.
Well, I just wanted to start. I'll give a real quick recap. In 1942, we had just come off of the Pearl Harbor attack, and in the United States, where you were living, there was this kind of new decree, and they started rounding up the Japanese American people and ended up putting them into internment camps, just out of the fear of the war and the things that were happening. So before we even get into that, can you just tell me a little bit of what it was like and what you remember when you first found out about what was happening?
Oh, yes, I'm so glad to be able to share this, Jared, because this could be lost in history.
Yeah.
It's being kind of glossed over, really. And so thank you for this privilege. Okay, thank you. I do remember the day that I was on the living room floor in Portland, Oregon, in our house, and I was just listening to the radio and everything. Then the announcement came over the radio, and it was a shock, such a shock to just hear that this little country of Japan attacking our big country, the United States, you know. I felt like it was like a chihuahua going after a St. Bernard. But really, why would such a small country like Japan? Because anyway, I'm an American, and that was Japan doing this at Pearl Harbor. And so the rumors started flying with my mother and their friends. You know, everybody's calling each other of the Japanese community, and they're just all frightened, and they just such a shock just rang through the whole community, you know. And so in the days to follow, we didn't know what to expect. You know, all kinds of things are being written, and all the signs go up, you know, Japs not allowed, and we weren't allowed in restaurants and different establishments and things like that. But then the time came for, the decree came from President Roosevelt. It was Executive Order 9066 that the Japanese people have to be evacuated from the West Coast. But we didn't know exactly what was coming or when. So we were under a curfew, all the Japanese people. 8 o'clock you had to be in, and you can't go more than 5 miles from home. And so about in April or so, we got the order that that in 2 weeks we had to be able to pack 2 suitcases and get ready to leave, and leave everything. And that impacted about 120,000 Japanese on the West Coast, you know.
And lost property and
Yes.
everything, right? Because
Yes.
whatever was in your 2 suitcases, that's all you could bring.
That's right. And get rid of everything, and in that short time, yeah, we had to burn everything up, get rid of stuff that had anything to do with Japan. And people were, you know, burning up pictures and other valuable things, and because the FBI did come around to just check to see if you were, you know, just if you were doing the right things, and yeah.
And so there's this attack that happens. You have 2 weeks to bring 2 suitcases with all your belongings. Everything else gets lost.
Yeah.
And then you actually get placed into the camp.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
If you see pictures of people getting ready to go, the Japanese people would have their hats on. They're all dressed up like they're going somewhere, you know. If you see those pictures, it's really sad. Yeah. And but anyway, toward the end of summer, we were told that we were going to be going to the camps, and we didn't know where we were going or anything, but they loaded us onto the trains. The blinds were all pulled, and we rode for about a couple of 3 days, just on a slow train, you know, and it's just crowded, and it was kind of messy. and we got there to our particular camp was Minidoka, near Twin Falls, Idaho. And it was just, the sagebrush had just been cleared, I guess, and the dust storms were just awful. And we would try to stuff our windows with newspaper or something so the dust wouldn't come in. But, you know, it's fresh dirt like that because they just cleared it away. And we had to stuff our mattresses with straw. So we would have bedding, you know. And we lived in, they gave us rooms about 8 by 10, and it was made of, what do you call that, plywood? Mm-hmm. And then we just hang a curtain for our door, you know. So there we are with everybody, you know, no one ever went into each other's places, but it's just a wide open thing, you know, just go. And we had 5 cots in our room. And my 2 brothers, my mother, and Jimmy and me. And so my block was Block 30, Barrack 6, Room D.
It's etched in your memory.
Yes, it is.
It was a big event. I can imagine how it would be memorable. Yeah. One thing that stands out to me in this story, and I think one thing that we want to learn from history, is not just to assume something about someone just because of how they look. And so I'm wondering now, having been on the receiving end of that, where just because of your ethnicity and just because you were Japanese, you lost pretty much everything. Yes. What advice do you have for me and my generation and the next generation about how to be better and how to move forward as a society?
Wow, that's a big question there. Oh, you know, I think it's all in your upbringing, and I think my faith had a lot to do with that for our family. Coming to the outside, what you're talking about is, it just makes you just know how valuable people are, and they each have a story, and so we just want to, I guess, to value each other as if we can, you know.
Oh. Well, thank you so much. It's so good I always love hanging out with you, but it's great to film it and get these stories so people can remember what happened and so that we can become better because of our history instead of just despite it. So thanks so much for sharing, Grandma.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jared. God bless you and bless you all.